Hello everyone, welcome and nice to see you in this video. Today we are here to talk about best practices in finance. How can university staff help students to make the best of their finances? And I'm joined here today by a panel of four students or alumni. Yeah, why don't you introduce yourselves? Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you studied, where you went on mobility, and maybe how your mobility experience influenced you now in an academic way, professional way, personal development, whichever applies to you.
So my name is Boye Bogaert. I studied political science and I'm currently in a gap year in between studies. I'm looking at perhaps pursuing a master's at the University of Utrecht. Last year, before COVID happened, I was on exchange in Korea, in Seoul at the Yonsei University. I was in the lucky position of not having to do any mandatory or compulsory courses. So I was lucky enough to cherry pick all the things that I was interested in, and it was just a blast. I did some courses in history, political science, geopolitics, and it really enhanced my knowledge, not only the academic knowledge, but also it meant a lot to me, like personally, because I gained so much because of all the perspectives that were being offered over there that I would otherwise probably not have been able to get. So it made me a more holistic human being, I guess. So that's it for me.
Okay, hi. My name is William. I'm from Costa Rica, and I did an exchange in the University of Amsterdam. I study communication science, and many of the courses that I took in Amsterdam were related to that field as well. For me, it was a huge privilege because I got a lot of different points of view from not only the Netherlands, Dutch people, but also how it works when it comes to content and strategy, and also law related to communication science from the European Union. So for me, especially for future research, um, all this information has been very important and useful for me. So we're very happy to be here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Safa Swiri. I'm an international student and I'm currently pursuing a master's degree in conflict resolution and governance. I moved to Amsterdam in August and it's been, so far, it's been a great experience. I'm very lucky to be able to live in Amsterdam and to be able to pursue a master's degree in English, which that was one of the main motivations for me to move here to this beautiful city.
Okay, and greetings everyone. My name is Katerina and I'm coming from Ukraine. And I'm an alumni of the program in International Development Studies GLODEP of Erasmus Mundus, which means that I studied in a comprehensive program with three universities that constitute the committee, and it was in the Czech Republic, Palacký University in Olomouc, France, Clermont-Ferrand University in Clermont-Ferrand, and Italy, University of Pavia in Pavia. It was definitely a very enriching and amazing experience, not only in terms of academics, but also because of meeting people from also different backgrounds from different countries all over the world. We had around 20 students with 17 nationalities, and it was one of the best experiences in my life.
Thank you for sharing, everyone. It's really nice to hear all your experience, and I already see that all of you agree that having an international experience during your studies is such a valuable experience, and it impacts you for the rest of your life. It's something you take with you forever. And unfortunately, some of you already mentioned it, that this is not something that is possible for everyone, because finances are a real big obstacle when you want to consider studying abroad. It's the question that we get asked the most when we work in the international office. A lot of students ask, how can I finance my study abroad experience? And it's something that we do not always talk about that much. Often we see that when students start to talk about their finance, there is a lot of stress involved. They don't really know where to start. They don't know what to look for. And it's something that we're not used to talking about. We haven't learned that early in school or something. So it's sometimes also really weird to start talking about it. Is it something that you recognize?
Well, yeah, personally speaking, it was definitely a big factor for me. I guess it's more a personal trait of mine, but I'm quite risk aversive, so I do not really like to do things that I'm not fully confident about, and I was not really aware in the beginning of the different options that the University of Amsterdam offered, and I wasn't aware either of the fact that the tuition fee whilst going exchange is actually a tuition fee of your home university and not your host university. For me, that was actually a big difference maker, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to have studied at Jans University, which is quite a highly rated university, I guess. And yeah, I guess I consider myself very privileged to be part of a system and to be a Dutch citizen, which basically enabled me to go abroad and take this opportunity. So yeah, definitely, if you are a little bit perhaps worried about your financial state or financial affairs, it can be tricky. But I was just so much, how do you say that, like backed by the system. The fact that I'm a Dutch citizen helped me a lot. But I know that not everyone is as fortunate as I am, of course. So.
Thank you for sharing, Boya. I hear a lot of really interesting things that you already mentioned, and we will get into that in a minute. I'm really curious to hear how you arranged this, and we will talk about that in a second. Thank you for sharing, Boya. Before we're talking about how we're not that used to talk about finances, even though talking about your finance is really important in the world that we live in, where you can say that money is really what makes the world go round. And we see that a lot of students really experience a difficulty in asking for help or even talking about the subject. Boy already shared a little bit, and I was wondering, Katarina, William, and Safa, is it something that you recognize as well?
I think I would say that in general, people are not that comfortable speaking about their finances, perhaps because there's a certain element of shame or discomfort that comes with it. All of us, because we're missing on sharing information and accessing knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And in my case, in case of Erasmus Mundus program, I found it very informative that all the information was provided beforehand. So everything that the scholarship covers, you can see in the information pack, and also when you're applying for the program. So in my case, it was subsistence costs, travel costs, installation costs, insurance was covered, and the tuition fees in the university. So that was really comprehensive and very good, very well conveyed to the participants of the program.
In my case, I got a lot of information about the university and also about the destination, in this case, Amsterdam. However, because of the specific agreement, I got a scholarship but when I was in Amsterdam, I got, well, there was an opportunity for me to get another semester, but it would be like I needed like to pay that instead of just having another scholarships, another scholarship. So for me, the problem was a little bit more like after the first semester. As however, in that case, I didn't know like what to do and stuff, but because of lots of members of the staff and also friends that I got there, European students who were there and who were in other situations out of Amsterdam and Europe. They helped me a lot. But it's I when things like that, like all of a sudden, like happen, it's very scary and it's normal, but in that case, hopefully I got lots of help, at least for me to generate ideas about like what to do.
Thank you all. I already hear so many interesting things about what helped you, but also obstacles that you encountered that you didn't plan for. And we're going to talk about all of these in the rest of the interview. But this proves to be very interesting. And right here at the beginning, I want to mention that really we're very thankful for you to be here and to talk about this topic. And that you really already demonstrate a lot of courage. And I really hope that this will inspire a lot of university staff to be aware that it might not always be easy to talk about those things. So I hope that staff watching will be better equipped to help other students in future. So let's dive in immediately. Looking at how you arranged your finances during the full mobility period. So that includes organizing your money matters, your earnings, your spendings, balancing the boat, but also protecting your money and making sure that borrowed money remains safe and that you thought ahead about the interest. All of these things together. If you could give your financial skills a number from 0 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 the best, you were really a financial hero, how would you grade your financial skills?
I'd say that I don't want to come over as as arrogant when it comes to financial matters, but I think I'm quite okay with managing my financial situation. It's also partially because I hail from a socio-economic background where there wasn't too much money available all the time. So my parents, they raised me with a big awareness of the value of money, and I always worked aside of studying, and I always made sure to have this buffer in case well, unexpected things happened. So I guess it's also because this is just the way I was raised, and I already told you about the fact that it's a big privilege, of course, to be a Dutch citizen, because there is a very a very good system, I guess, you can rely on. But yeah, I'd say sorry.
So what grade would you give all that?
Sorry, one more time.
So with your upbringing and the element of privilege that you mentioned, which I think would be important as well, what grade would you say your financial skills deserve?
I think 8 or something like that, something around that mark. Yeah. I consider myself quite financially literate, and throughout my exchange. Beforehand, I of course I looked into the different opportunities of getting a scholarship.
We'll go into that in a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
We'll go into that in a little bit. Thank you. What other grades?
Well, in my case, I would give it an 8, because due to the fact that sometimes depending, well, because of my situation, um, in when you move like very far and you don't know how the economy and the system works there, I did like lots and lots of research beforehand, and especially like how everything, yeah, how everything works in general in the Netherlands. So when I was there, of course, it would get very difficult sometimes, because you get like many amazing things that you didn't had before, many different experiences. I'm very curious person, so I want to like try it all and stuff. So for me it was like very like, okay, you need to control yourself and your money, because
And you would say that with all that together, we're gonna go and look at why this 8. But for you would say that with all this combined and all the challenges, you think you did really well, so an 8.
I did, yeah.
Perfect. Katarina, Safa, what about you?
Okay, I think I would also probably rate in this ranking maybe about 8 or 9, and that maybe as a combination. Before I used to use the tracking apps of the daily expenses what I have, and like to try to select them by the categories. But apart from that, also since I needed to move from the country to country during my study program, I was trying to compare them with the Numbeo webpage. Let's see, like, okay, what are the consumer prices, what are the rent prices, and like to see at least the average. But also, that was a great help from all the 3 universities that were providing the information, because we all were receiving the information packs, and a lot of knowledge was coming from there, and also the ability to calculate in different currencies. So you don't think in Ukrainian hryvnias anymore, but you need to calculate in euro, or let's say in the Czech kronas. So that was also very much helping. So I would say
Already here,
worked
you already
out very
mentioned.
well.
Yeah, so you already mentioned that the app was very helpful during mobility, and I'm really sorry to every time cut you short, and maybe just to explain. So this interview, we have to work with timestamps, which mean that people that don't watch the full interview, when they get into the interview, they need to know when we're talking about what, and I'm really sorry, but that is why I have to keep the structure of the interview. And everything that you mentioned is very helpful. And I really hope that you get back into that when we talk about what constitutes this grade. So I've heard 888, and in the rest of the interview, we're going to see what did you do when you were thinking about going abroad, and what did you do to prepare? What happened when you were at the other university? And then we're going to get really into what helped. So I'm really curious to hear all of that. But first, I want to hear from Safa. What grade would you give yourself?
I think that in theory, I would give myself an 8, but in practice, with my current experience, I'll give myself a 6.5.
That's really interesting. I'm really curious to hear you expand on that in a bit. So the first part that we're going to talk about now, I already mentioned a bit, we'll go through the 4 phases of mobility. So we call it orientation, preparation, during mobility, and after mobility. And we're going to look at what financial decisions did you make, how did you make them, and what helps in making that decision. What can university staff do to help students make the right financial decision in all of these phases? And we're going to start with orientation. And I'm really curious to hear from you when you were thinking about maybe going abroad. At what point did you start thinking about finance, and how did that impact you in the orientation phase?
Well, at least for me, it was a little bit tricky, because it really depends on where you want to go. In my case, I really wanted to be in Amsterdam, even though there were like many other destinations for me that are so way cheaper, like Colombia, Mexico. In my case, because of the program and everything, I decided like to stick to Amsterdam. where at that time I was like, okay, is it very expensive? Is it very, very difficult? And this staff member in Costa Rica was like, okay, it's very, very expensive. And of course, we have like a program that can help you, especially financially. However, it's not enough. So you need to look for many sources. So, we have like a strong filter, which is like you need to have just demonstrate that you have like very, very high grades, but also you have to get like some other resources to complement that, So in my case, my parents helped me a lot. And in my case, I needed also to get some other sources, like getting small jobs in that case. And yeah, that was like the biggest thing that I could, because there were a lot of opportunities. There were not a lot, but in my case, like for a year, I got like the enough money for me to complement like the help from Amsterdam.
And if I can continue on that, how did you find the scholarship from the Costa Rica University? Was it announced somewhere on the website, or was there maybe some kind of info event? Where did you find this?
That was available from the international office from the University of Costa Rica. So basically, every university has a very, very specific program. Many of them have, well, not many of them, a few of them have like this financial like help scholarships. Whether with other one, sorry, you need to look for any other sources. So in my case, I went the office, and I was like, okay, I want this. I want to do this. Is it available? When can I apply? And everything gets synchronized with the University of Amsterdam.
Right. And was it somewhere on the website, or did you ask them and then you received the information?
It was both. I was like, please, send me like the email information where it's available, and at the same time they posted on their web page, Facebook, where everyone can apply.
Thank you. Katarina, you already mentioned a bit that the Erasmus Mundus program, all the information was really clear. It was all on the website, all the costs exactly. And was that also a reason for you to specifically look at this program?
That was very nice that that was specified in the program, because it's almost the same, I think, for all the Erasmus Mundus programs. So you can research on the portal, but also on the specific web pages of the universities, you can find the information. The only difference is, I think, apply by the travel distances from people coming from different countries. So that might differ from country to country, but everything else was very clear and much specified even beforehand, like on the stage of application, when you submit and look for the program. So that was an advantage.
And when did you first think of Erasmus Mundus? How did you come up with the idea to do that?
Very first, I had a friend that was studying on Erasmus Mundus program, different one. But I was back then on the third year of my bachelor's, and that's when the dream came. So afterwards, when I finished my bachelor studies, I applied for Erasmus Mundus program, already having the bachelor's diploma. So I was dreaming for quite a lot to apply for Erasmus Mundus.
And did you get any advice from your university on whether you should do it, or scholarships or anything?
The thing is with the Erasmus Mundus degrees is that you don't apply from your home country university, but as an individual, as an applicant. So it's irrespectively of your university, you can choose any program that matches your curriculum or something that you studied before, and then you compete with the students from all over the world that apply for the same program. So that's maybe the difference with the usual Erasmus Plus, which is connected to university.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sometimes university staff also facilitate students to think about the next step in their academic career. So I was wondering if your university did something like that, but maybe not. Safa, Boye, what about you? When did you first think of finances in relation to your dream of studying abroad?
I think that for me, coming from America, finance is something that we're always thinking about because our schooling is very expensive. So we are familiar with applying for FAFSA and seeing what kind of student loans we can get. And when I was looking for schools in Europe, most particularly in Amsterdam, I was really happy to see that the University of Amsterdam participates in FAFSA and also in the federal direct loan program for master students. So there was enough information for me to be able to plug the University of Amsterdam FAFSA code into my application. And through that, I was able to get the finances that I needed to be able to make the move.
Yeah, for me, as I already said, and I guess it's sort of the same situation as William. I was pretty much aware of the opportunities at hand, and I was also very much convinced that I wanted to study outside of Europe because I wanted to test myself in a culture that was very unfamiliar to me, and it wasn't so much the academic standards that draw me to Korea, but more the culture over there. So I knew that moving outside of Europe would imply being probably more expensive of an exchange. But I knew what my financial situation was at the time. I knew what I was capable of, but of course I did take in mind all things finance related, and I visited the sessions, of course, the information sessions, and there I became aware of the opportunity to get a grant or a scholarship, and I applied for that, and I was lucky enough to receive it as well. So that definitely helped me out a lot. And I think it was very important that on this overview that we have at the University of Amsterdam, the world map, you can see a overview of all things, but also the financial circumstances or the things that you have to consider, perhaps. So even things as like flying towards your destination, housing, the average the average price of meals even is being covered over there. So I think that made me aware of the situation of my exchange destination or my potential exchange destination, and it's gave me the opportunity to be well informed, I guess. So yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. I hear that for all of you, you were able to find quite a lot of information online, maybe on the website of the program that you were looking to apply for, or on the website of the scholarship that you or loan that you want to apply for. I also hear that sometimes university organizes events and workshops and makes information available. And I think that is something, yeah, that's really helpful to hear as university staff, because I think that quite often the university staff struggles on how to make a study abroad experience inclusive and available for everyone, while sometimes we also want to make sure that students understand that there are some risks. You can come back with debt, or maybe it's not. Maybe we also really want to be mindful of students and not get them in a situation where they might look back later in life and feel that they might have taken a bit too much risk there. So it's really helpful what you say of putting a lot of information online. And I hear that all of you were actually able to then make an informed decision yourself on whether this is something that you want to do or not. So that's helpful to hear. Thank you. And I'm interested to hear during the preparation phase of your mobility, was there any help for you in how to actually apply for the grant or scholarship that you received or loan?
To be honest, I do not really recall if there was any help. I don't think that I went out of my way to ask help. So I guess I just found enough information online, and I think I had to like write in a motivation letter and upload my resume or something like that. pretty straightforward things that I was able to do on my own. I do not really recall asking for help, no.
Well, well, in my case, like it was half and half. Like half was from the University of Costa Rica, because it's like a contest you need to like win basically. So they guide you like step by step. Once everything, like all the documents and stuff, are sent by to the University of Amsterdam, then the other half goes with the UVA basically. So it was like it was a lot of help with that.
And was it help also in how to arrange that, or was it mostly financial help?
At first, it was financially, but then the other information, it was like completely available. Sorry, so I got lots of help.
So again, I hear that is really helpful if the information is available online, but I can understand that in some cases still it's quite difficult to find the right financial aid type for you. What kind of loan or scholarship should I take out, and how the hell do I arrange this? And Steph, I'm really curious to hear from you. What did university staff do to assist you in this process?
Because I was coming from the United States, I think that each time I had a question, I did email. I think that you and I exchanged a few emails back and forth. And I'm really grateful that whenever I emailed, I did receive a response as soon as possible, even though it was like starting of Corona times and things were a little bit confusing. So I feel that I received enough support and enough information as well via like the UVA website explaining everything, how to do it like step by step, and the additional guidance via emails. So I'm really satisfied about that process.
Okay, as for me, I would say that since we don't have the program Erasmus Mundus doesn't connect to the university which is signing, but only the hosting universities, like 3 universities, and I started from the Czech Republic. So the first assistance I received from the University of Palacky, and that was mainly the information on the procedures. Okay, how to proceed with the visa application, what to do as the next step, which was also very, very important before you depart, especially as the non-EU citizen. So in that way, the university supports us, plus also is the information of what should you bring to the program and how much financially, how much cash should you bring and what it will be spent on. Like, let's say the accommodation, the deposit for the accommodation, for the SIM cards, and like how to proceed with your finances. But maybe if in detail, I can also tell a bit more about before mobility or during mobility stage of the interview.
And I hear all of you, actually, you're quite happy with how it went in preparation, and either you don't really needed help or you were able to find it. But I'm also really curious because we know that a lot of students really struggled during this period with comparing documents. Sorry, I think we had a short technological glitch. Can you all hear me? All right. What we hear from a lot of students is that it's also quite scary. You know, you're going to a different country and you don't really, it's not always easy to see what you can expect there. So what I'm wondering is, did you also, can you remember something that was really difficult for you that you could have used more support in during this preparation phase?
In my case, I would say maybe in experiences with other Costa Rican students, you know, but in that case, it's very, very natural because it's maybe like 1, 2, or maybe 3 per year, I think. who go to places like Amsterdam. So it was like almost like impossible to, but I think that's very, very natural because of that. It's just there are very few people.
And did the university organize for you to get in contact with those students, or did you do that yourself?
It was just like a girl. So it was very, very, very difficult at the end. She helped us a little bit, but then unfortunately we lost touch. So it was very, very like scary. But of course, I want to be like a person like so much more like, because I've been there. So yeah.
I would say the one thing that I would have really liked to have seen, perhaps it's like maybe a YouTube video that maybe discusses like the finances or the actual process of moving. Because most of the videos that I saw, it's like basically students talking about the accommodations and how much they love them. I would have liked to see something like that, but definitely more geared toward like the actual move and the finances.
Yeah, I'd like to perhaps elaborate on that because personally, I did not really miss that much in the whole stage of pre-departure. But I think the one thing that would have helped me perhaps a little bit is more information about the housing situation in Korea, which is a tricky situation. There are not so many houses available, and the prices are also comparatively high, I'd say. I ended up living in a 4 square meter room without a window. And it wasn't too bad actually, because it was very close to the university's front gate. But yeah, I think it's very context specific. So I'm not sure if it's even possible to facilitate that kind of thing, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really. Go ahead, Katrina.
In my case, I would say like not that something that I was missing, but rather as a good case practice. We had the Facebook group with the current students. So any questions maybe that the assistants of university couldn't answer, we could ask in the group, and then the current students would help us in this issue. So that was very nice. And the Facebook group was organized by the university staff. So it was created and we were invited by the link.
Yeah, that is something we hear quite a lot, that students really appreciate it when other students help them and share the firsthand experience of, okay, you've read all this, but this is what it's really like. And also what you say is that sometimes the information is really context specific, and then especially then it really helps when an incoming university can show you this is what it's like when you go to this specific context. Because even in the Netherlands, Amsterdam is very different from if you go study in Groningen, for instance. And then you're there, and then you get to the place where you're going to study, and you're actually doing it, you're on mobility, you have everything prepared. And of course, it doesn't always go as expected. So I'm really curious to hear, did you encounter any obstacles that you didn't expect while you were on mobility? Maybe anything that was difficult, and how did you deal with it?
Oh, sorry.
All right. I think that for me right now, the challenge is that, so I got like my second lump sum of my whole loan, whatever was left after deducting the tuition. And that's like, that's with my rent and everything else. I think the thing that I didn't really think of or really prepare myself was the fact that I wouldn't be bringing in money because of the current COVID situation, and also being an international student. I'm not really able to find anything where I can save money, because right now it's just spending it. And that's not something that I really thought about it fully prior to coming here.
Yeah, I think Yeah, well, there is of course no influx of money. Usually, you can work perhaps, but I think it's a fairly difficult process, especially if you're just on exchange for 4 months or something like that. It's probably not feasibly doable. So I ended up making some money in the black market by doing an extra job on a Korean film set, but it was not something that I had anticipated upon, of course. And I do recall getting a little bit sick and feeling quite unsure or yeah, a little bit lost when it came to how this could perhaps impact my finances as well. If I get a serious illness or something like that, where do I go to? How does it work? It's probably something that I can manage, or I can, there is information available, but it was something that I was a little bit, well, yeah, it made me think. But I ended up not getting sick, so it was not necessary to worry. But yeah, I do recall feeling a little bit uncertain. Yeah.
This is what you mentioned. It's a typical thing to encounter during mobility. We quite often see that students, no matter how well you prepare, it's not always easy to prepare for those really unexpected things that that can happen. And in most cases, there's always something unexpected that will happen. And I'm really wondering if both of you, if you felt that you could rely on what you did in your preparation to deal with this unexpected outcome, or do you feel that this is something you would, if you would have known this, you would have done it differently?
I think I always felt confident, probably based upon the support that I have back in the Netherlands. I know that I have a lot of people who would be able to help me, assist me, my parents. So I'm very lucky with that, of course. And I knew that I was also probably like at least for a little bit financially backed by the how do you say that, the insurance that I had to take because that was a mandatory travel insurance or something like that. So I'm not sure what it would have like actually covered, but I did feel a little insecure about the prospect of getting ill and how to do that. But at the end, I think that I would have been able to manage it, and I'm not sure what I would have done otherwise to be able to prevent this feeling of uncertainty. Or no.
Well, in my case, I would divide it by, first financial, like in general, because well, when I got the chance, these extra semester in Amsterdam, and it was supposed to be like all cost by me. I couldn't like depend on my parents like for the whole time, because it would be like impossible, you know. So I was very tempted to the black market. However, I didn't know, like, especially in Amsterdam, but I didn't know like how much that would affect me, like for my academic grades, especially if I want to, for instance, apply in the future for, I don't know, for a master's in Amsterdam or something like that. And also I didn't know like many other available tools for me that at least could help me for a little bit of things, or maybe for a little bit more days, just in case other bigger thing comes out, you know. So for instance, in my case, and it was very thing by people, not people who wear, especially Europeans, but who wear to places like Australia or Canada, where they needed like some income. So for instance, I got to in Amsterdam, I knew that well, I found out that there were universities who help with money if you come with some experiments, you know. But you know, like financial experiments, like with a computer, like very simple things that I at least can help you for a couple of days, you know. Also, there are a couple of companies that help you if you do like other small tasks, like for instance, doing like proving a product or something like that, and just like a very few things. But when you group them, they can help you. Like in the meantime, you can find out like some more biggest help.
So you really went to look everywhere to see where you can find some extra income.
Yeah, I was desperate. So I was with the classmates, other students, of course, the stuff.
That must have been really stressful for you. Was there anything the university did during this period? Did you have someone to talk to? Was there anything that the university did to help you during this period?
Yeah, actually, like many of them from the international office in Amsterdam, they were like looking for some way to help me, but I found out that there are many things that I really needed to be like very deep, because they didn't. I mean, I understand them, as locals. There are many things that they have for granted, so that's normal. You don't think about those things, therefore you don't recommend them, so it was a little bit, because many of them, they were like, oh no, you can stay here because your visa helps you gives you the chance to work. And it was like, really? And then I was to the company and I was, no honey, no, your visa is very different. In my case, of course, I didn't know Dutch. So I didn't know like what my ID, like what actually like said, But in my case, of course, it was very different, because I was on exchange. I was not in a bachelor's or master's, where you actually can are allowed to work, But they didn't know those things, so they were like, oh my god, as shocked as I was, like, what should we do, Hopefully I they helped me get a voluntary program where they could help me for my studies. That was like the big thing. But yeah, so they helped me a lot, but I know that it could have been like more, but I also understand that I was not like, and there is not like many people like me in my situation, so I understand it.
I'm not really sure if that's the case. I think that actually there are quite a lot of students like you who feel quite lonely and difficult. And what I hear from you is also it was quite difficult to sort these things out by yourself, especially when it doesn't go as expected. And I'm curious, last question, and then I would like to hear from Katarina, but what could have helped you? What could your university have done to help you in this period? Or is that a difficult question? Maybe one of the other students, did you encounter anything on your university or in a different university that helps international students deal with those moments of difficulty when they're on exchange?
I think
can
for
say
me,
that. Sorry.
I think for me that whenever we feel like that, or we feel that things are getting really difficult, we actually do have an outlet with our program advisor. So we contact her or our main class professor. They're always willing to listen to us and provide advice. So it's a nice outlet, and they do give us the emotional support that we need. For me, it's just been really difficult because of COVID. I'm sure if the pandemic wasn't the case, things would have been perhaps a little bit more easier for international students as far as like having more of a social university life and being able to find like little part-time employment or being more part of the community as we would have liked. But there's still really good opportunities right now at the school that we can take part of.
Also, I would say maybe as a good practice from the hosting university that we had, we were provided by the insurance, and it was quite good company and with the good coverage. So maybe if university can advise the students coming on the mobility, which insurance they can take. So it can include not only the health insurance, but let's say liability insurance, and could be comprehensive. That would prevent such unexpected cases and help in case of emergency or if something happens. Would be helpful.
Yeah, I think the Yonsei University, there was a very elaborate opening event with also a couple of sessions about finances. And these were actually very helpful. They handled topics like what to do when you want to have a public transport card, for example, or should you not get a Korean bank account open, because that is a possibility. If you want to work, but you have only a short-term visa, how do you arrange that? So I think that was actually very helpful. Yeah, definitely.
All right. And I'm wondering, then you dealt with this financial crisis, you arranged everything you need to arrange when you're on location, and then you go back. I'm wondering, did you do any kind of reflection on your financial skills? Maybe you compared the budget that you make, or maybe you checked how you can take the remaining money from your foreign account back to your account. Was there any kind of way you concluded the financial journey you made?
Yeah, for me, I guess I went on exchange and I had an idea of how much I wanted to spend, a maximum amount, of course. And I also had the idea to perhaps travel after completing my exchange program at host university. And I was actually very happy to conclude afterwards that I did not even spend I think not even like 80% of the amount that I set for myself. So I managed to remain firmly within the boundaries that I established for myself before going on exchange. So yeah, I did of course compare the initial idea or ideal situation with what I ended up spending, and I think it made me quite proud of my own ability to stick to the limits that I set for myself financially.
Yeah, you should be. That's a really yeah. It doesn't always happen. Did you use some kind of budget tool? Did the university offer any kind of budget tool for you? How did you do this?
Well, I'm a person who is very much aware of finances myself. So I did take into the consideration what were like the average monthly expenses whilst being on exchange, but also afterwards, like traveling, how many flights am I going to take? What will the public transport cost? What will like the staying in sleeping in hostels, what will that comprise to? So I did make it like an overview, and I was aware of, like, I had an estimate, I think an educated estimate as well, as to what I was probably about to spend on my 6-month stay out of my comfort zone. So yeah, I think I did also use the the resources available at the University of Amsterdam's websites. So you have like an overview of every destination, and I took that as like a mean for to base my expectations upon, I guess. Yeah.
My case, I was at the end, I was very, very happy that I saved like enough for any emergency, because when I needed to go back, even though I spent like maybe like a month or or something, yeah, something like that, exploring like the Netherlands, because the program was ended, and it was in the middle of summer, so it was, and also the cases were not that terrible in the Netherlands, so it was very, very nice. And also I didn't know, because of COVID, the situation with flights and stuff, they were very, 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 very difficult at that time. There was just like one airline for me to go directly to Costa Rica, because I couldn't go like outside of the Netherlands. So it was very, very, very difficult, but at the same time, I even though I don't want to like brag, but I think I did like amazing management at the end, because I didn't know like how much how would cost me, sorry, to go back. So in that case, at the end, my home university helped me, but the process there are so slow that I needed like to buy the flight ticket like now, you know. So if I hadn't thought about that, like I don't know, insuring costs, that flight, that, you know, it was still in the middle of summer, so it was around like almost 900 euros, sorry, to go back. And also I needed to go to Germany, and how do I arrange that? I wasn't gonna live in Amsterdam, so how would I stay? So it was kind of complicated, but that forced me a lot to be like, okay, I need to save, and maybe to get like a little some little sacrifices. But at the end, I knew that it was worth it for sure.
And this is, of course, something that can always happen as a university. Sometimes when you send students out on exchange, a crisis like COVID can happen, or we've seen that students go to a city where riots break out, and then sometimes you have to get your students back. And I'm wondering, in this case, did the university help you in how you could get back? Did they help you financially with the crisis ticket? Or did you have to do that on your own?
In my case, as I said before, at the end they helped me, so it was very, very nice. But I needed like to do it like now, so it was kind of complicated. But they helped me a lot.
Oh, you had to pay it, and then they refunded it.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah. And what about the others? What did you do when you were, Safa, of course, you're still here. So Katerina, after mobility, did you compare your budget? You mentioned the budget tool before, right?
Yeah, I was during my mobility, and I was using the application to track the budget, but also it was helping like comparing different prices in different countries, so you can see the costs. And I would advise Numbeo webpage, but also that was helpful by university that was preparing the info pack with all the information about the accommodation, approximate prices with advice for good accommodation, affordable or close to university. That was really, really helpful, because sometimes they also were advising for those that given the contract, and because some accommodation they don't, and that's very important for non-EU citizens that apply for visa. So it was also taken into account. And also how much approximately could be spent on groceries in each country, and what should we do to plan it beforehand. So that was very helpful on plan budget. But apart from that, the university was also suggesting the bank where to open the account to receive the scholarship. And in my case, since we needed to complete the program in 3 countries, it was very important so we can use the bank in all the 3 countries, and that the rate for withdrawal would be not so high in all of them, and so to the possible. It was also very, very helpful from the side of university.
How was that for the other students? Did you get any help with opening a bank account and things like this?
Yeah, thanks that the staff of bank account was also speaking English. That was very helpful. But in France, for instance, the university also advised us about the CAF procedure. In that case, when partial the accommodation cost could be reimbursed for students because it's quite expensive in France. So the local bodies, they were assigned to us in France, and they were going with us, literally going to the bank and opening the bank account, because in that case, that was really hard for people who didn't know French. It was also really helpful, also arranged by university.
That's something really interesting that you mentioned, having a buddy system that helps you with those types of things. And it goes back a little bit to the during mobility phase. Yeah, but I think from what I see, sometimes you have to have that much specific knowledge of the city you're in to do those simple things as open a bank account, or you mentioned insurance or work. And in that case, a buddy system could really be helpful. So, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. So I'm just really curious to hear, were there any other students who made use of a buddy system? Was there a buddy system offered or something similar?
In my case, especially because of COVID, many of Costa Rican students got stuck in Europe in different parts. So we got like this WhatsApp who was linked with also the members of the staff in Costa Rica, who would like help us a lot during like the alerts and any other information about the embassies and how to get like back home.
Yeah, there was the opportunity to join a buddy program in Seoul. I attended one of the meetings because I was quite late with applying for the buddy program, but I ended up thinking that it was probably a good thing to do, of course, if you want to get to know the culture. But it was heavily revolved around drinking, and I wasn't too fond on like doing that every single time we went out to have dinner, and that's why I stopped partaking in the buddy program, fortunately. But I did found like massive support from the people around me, because I was living with a lot of international students who were pretty much in the same situation as I was in. Also a couple of Dutch people. So it was very nice to be able to relate to them, and they helped me out whenever I was struggling with, well, for example, public transport or things like that. I ended up not taking a Korean bank account because I just figured I'm going to stay here for 4 months. And that was perhaps not the most shrewd move. But yeah, I think there was a lot of assistance offered also, yeah, in the form of a buddy program. So, and in the University of Amsterdam, I was part of a buddy program actually myself. So I helped a couple of international visiting students for a while, but I found out quite early on that they already like created group apps themselves, and I was like left out of the equation, which is perfectly fine. That's exactly what should happen. But I think, yeah, the University of Amsterdam also offers the opportunity to partake in the buddy program. Yeah.
I think what you say is exactly the point, that sometimes you need to have contact with local students just to help you connect to other students that are in the same position as you, so that then students can answer each other's questions as well. The university staff, unfortunately, cannot always accompany you to the bank and everything, even though we might want to do that sometimes. So then it's a really great solution to give students the opportunity to talk to each other, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes when you talk to a local student, you already have all the information you need to know whether to open a bank account or not. And just because I want to be mindful of the time, we're going to move to the reflection, and I'm going to ask 2 questions, and you can choose which one you'd like to answer. So the first one is there anything you would have wanted to do differently now that you look back on the whole experience? And the other one is there anything you think the university staff did specifically to make this experience such a success for you financially wise? Anything that wasn't mentioned before? Shall I repeat both questions? So the first one is there anything that you, when you look back, think you would have wanted to do differently? And the other one is there anything that wasn't mentioned before that the university did or didn't do to help you make this a success financially wise?
I think I'd like to answer the second question. Personally, I think a big help that was offered by the university was actually, and it sounds quite ridiculous perhaps, but the motivational part of like the information session. So it is scary, and also when it comes to finances, it's a pretty scary move. Of course, you're going to go to a country that you perhaps do not even know what currency they use or something like that. So and the flight is going to be expensive. Living there is going to be expensive. It's all around a very scary, or it can be a very scary thing. But I think that it was very nice to have someone telling you that there are many people who do this on a yearly basis, and they come back way way more well-rounded or stronger, or they have a enhanced academic knowledge. So I think having someone tell you that it's okay to be scared, but that you are probably able to manage, and that there are also always resources available that you can rely on or fall back on in times of difficulty. So I think that's a very important part of going abroad. So the pre-departure phase and the inspiration that you get and the motivation that you get from the beginning onwards. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to share?
In my case, well, I think I'll go for the first one. I would, I think I was very well, too much harsh on myself, on the process, because there are many of many situations that I couldn't control, which is normal, and I mean, we're just like humans, you know. And I definitely would have changed that, because like this voice in my head saying that you're doing it like right, you know. There are many situations that just like they get out of hand, and you cannot like control everything in your life, especially if you're like abroad. There are many, it doesn't matter how much you research, how many people you ask about like your next destination or program. There are many factors, many elements that you wouldn't live, and that you maybe you wouldn't prepared, because you're not there. So once you get there, you're gonna get like your version, and you're gonna see like many other information. So it's also fine not to be prepared about those things, and of course it's normal to get scared. But yeah, I would definitely say, like, you know, be patient and don't go very, very hard on you.
That's really great advice, William. Thank you for sharing that. I think that is you're exactly hitting the point that there will always happen things that are not in your control, and of course, finances for a big part, they're not really in your control, because sometimes there's just not that much that can be offered to you. And as university staff, what we can do is always think about what can we do to make the student see what is in your control. And that is, of course, preparation and research, which helps you later on feel that you have the tools to deal with a situation, and that you can feel confident about the difficulty at hand, and that you can go back with a feeling that you learned something, and not only the whole academic and cultural experience, but also that you've really gained skills that you can rely on for the rest of your life. I think that's a great point that you made. Who would like to share a little or answer one of the questions before we wrap up? Katarina, Safa, I want to give you the opportunity as well.
I would like just to say a big thank you to my university that really did a great job, and I would say that before planning of all the program, that was really helpful. So I would not say that I would have changed something or would even advise, but rather use my case as a good case practice for the other universities or committees of the program, because everything was very well planned in all the phases before, during the program, during the orientation, so everything was very clearly conveyed, and also the response rate of the university assistants was very nice. They were always answering the questions or inquiries, or if they couldn't do that, they would apply for external help, let's say for the local students, buddies. So everything was very well organized.
I wanted to echo the same sentiments that Katerina just said. For my case as well, everything was just so effortless. All the information that I needed was available on the website, step-by-step guide. And whenever I needed extra help, the student loan, foreign loan, UvA team always contacted me. Whenever there's a deposit about to be made, I was contacted. I was also offered guidance on which bank account to open here in the Netherlands, and to wait for my BSN number. So I think that I was very well helped and assisted.
I'm really happy to hear that all of you have had such a great experience, learned a lot, and had a lot of resources you could rely on. And I hope that that is an example for for me as well, on what we can do to accommodate students in every phase financially. So I would like to really thank you. Thanks a lot for this interview, for sharing your experience, difficult or happy. Personally, I did learn a lot. And also I'm really reminded of how important it is to listen to students whenever they have questions, and hear also what might be behind the question. Yeah, I'm really happy to have had this interview with you. So I'd really like to thank you one last time for your time, and I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.